Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and today I want to talk about my favorite origin story in Dragon Age Origins. Fair warning, if you haven't played through all of the origins, somehow managed to not find out details about them online, and want them to remain a mystery to you, perhaps skip this for now and return later after you've experienced them yourself. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. I like all of the origins because it's nice to have the option to play any one out of the 6 and thus have more freedom to create a character that feels different for role-playing purposes, but I do admit that some are closer to my heart than others. The first origin I ever played, for example, the Human Noble, is an origin I love and I enjoy replaying it quite a lot. It does a great job of being relevant to the main plot with the Landsmeet portion of the game, both because it involves how and because it's all about human nobles doing noble things like debating and dueling. I love that you get to have your family sword, even though it's not very good, as a memento from home, and that at the end of the game, justice is dispensed, and you get your lands back, and the wardens get Amaranthine, which belonged to How. On the other side of the spectrum, the Dalish elf feels a bit disappointing, because you never get to see your clan again, and instead visit Zathrian's clan during the main quest, and for some reason people there seem to be suspicious of a Dalish Grey Warden. I would have liked being part of Zathrian's clan during the origin, so that when my warden returns to their clan during the main quest, some clan members are happy to see them, while others perhaps blame them from Tamla's disappearance/death. It would also have a stronger emotional impact to realize your own keeper has been keeping such a terrible secret the entire time. The Circle Mage and the Dwarf Commoner are my least favorite, mainly because I just don't feel that the actual plot of these origins is emotionally impactful. The Circle Mage does have interesting lore that you learn about mages and magic and Thedas, and the Dwarf Commoner of course shows what the caste system in Orzammar does to the poor people. Those aspects of the origins are very nice, but unfortunately the plots, or perhaps the supporting characters, simply don't make me care enough. Jowan in the Mage origin is what I assume shows up in the dictionary definition of pathetic little meow meow, and from day one he's one of the characters who annoy me the most in Origins with how much of a disaster he is. The Fate part of the origin is super interesting as you get to talk to spirits and demons, but afterwards you're forced to help Jowan escape, even if you're just pretending to help him, and that just didn't make sense to me. Jowan's just too unlikable, so even though the origin suggests that he's the warden's friend, I couldn't get into it. I didn't understand why the warden would care at all. Leske in the Dwarf Commoner origin is, well, he has some comments he makes about the warden's sister, possibly the warden herself if she's a woman, and suggests to a guy warden some really questionable shit about being attracted to a sister. The plot itself is kind of meh. You do some basic enforcer job, and then you have to ensure a particular fighter wins in the provings. The fighter is passed out drunk, so you put on his armor and pretend to be him. You eventually get caught, and are imprisoned by the Carta and have to fight your way out, after which Duncan recruits you. It doesn't feel that interesting. It just doesn't click with me. That leaves 2 more origins, the City Elf and the Dwarf Noble. The City Elf is 3rd in my rankings, with the Human Noble in 2nd place, so the Dwarf Noble is my favorite origin story. The City Elf is pretty brutal, which makes it a very strong origin story to paint you a picture of the world you live in as a City Elf. Of course, I know it's not for everyone because it deals with some very sensitive topics which can be triggering for some people, but for me it really made me see Ferelden differently after I played it. I knew that the elves were oppressed, but I wasn't aware of the kinds of things that people, especially nobles, could do to elves and get away with them because no one gives a shit about the poor alienage knife ears. I do also feel it's a little bit weird that a city elf can become the hero of Ferelden, simply for the fact that elves in the alienage aren't allowed to own weapons. So even though it's explained that the city elf's mother trained them to fight when they were younger, it still feels somewhat weird that they're able to kill so many guards in Vaughn's estate to get to him. That's another reason why I put the city elf as 3rd in my rankings, because there's a little bit of a mismatch between the fighting ability we have in gameplay and the expectation of it from the lore. Finally, we get to the Dwarf Noble. Why do I like it so much? I admit that part of it is that it takes all of your equipment away when you get exiled and makes you fight your way through an area with whatever you can scavenge. I've always loved these kinds of missions in games, and add to that the absolute shock and genuine betrayal I felt when I realized that Bhelen set me up to take the fall for Trian's death. When I played the Dwarf Noble origin for the first time, I was so mad at Bhelen that for once I didn't support him as king, even though I absolutely agreed with his modern policies and knew he was the right candidate. Of course, after you've played through the origin once, you know what's coming, but I don't know, I respect Bhelen's scheming, especially because if you play the standalone mission that was created as a demo for the Dragon Age toolset, I believe it's called A Dwarf's Tale, maybe? you can find out that Bhelen was the one who orchestrated the Aidukan shield being placed in that area in the first place. He was playing the long game and fooled pretty much everyone. I think some people have a bit of an incomplete idea of Dwarven culture and politics because I've heard quite a few times that some players were confused about why Bhelen was the better king out of him and Haramont. The thing is, while Bhelen is a bit of a slimy dude, he's playing the same game that all nobles are playing. He's just winning, which is why they're mad at him. Assassinations, forgeries, political machinations, and all sorts of other bad stuff is exactly what Dwarven nobility does to remain on top. It's just that Bhelen wants to make casteless and surfacer dwarves have actual rights in Dwarven society, which many nobles hate because it takes away from their own power. All those Dwarven nobles who tell the warden they have to side with Haramont, they're representing the horrible oppressive status quo. They want things to stay the same, for them to be on top, and for someone else to be under their heel eating dust. They pretend like the reason they don't want Bhelen to rule is because he got his brothers killed and or exiled, or because maybe he poisoned his father, which I don't believe he did. The truth is that he's too good, and he has too many new and scary ideas he wants to implement, which the traditionalists obviously don't want. But even so, with the whole killing his brother thing, other nobles who ended up being elected kings did the same thing. King Endrin himself, Bhelen's father, got his brother killed in approving by convincing him to fight against a convicted murderer and poisoning that murderer's blade. So, like father, like son. In any case, before this turns into a why you should make Bhelen king video, I love the dwarf noble origin because it manages to combine multiple interesting things. It has good dwarven lore, you get Gorum as your origin companion, who is a bit of a fan favorite, probably a little less liked than Sir Gilmore, but still up there. You get to experience fighting Darkspawn in the Deep Roads where they actually come from, both as part of the expedition as well as in exile with barely any gear. You can have a baby with a noble hunter, and later on when you return to Orzammar, you can get your son and your son's mother to be recognized as nobility. And for me at least, the emotional journey of the plot is well done and the characters are strong. Gorum is a loyal companion, Trian, your older brother, is an absolute ass and would make a terrible king, Bhelen is very convincing with his concerned younger brother act, you can fight in your own honor in the provings and show everyone up, and it just all comes together to make for a satisfying narrative. Do I still have some issues with the origin? Yes I do. There's some sexist comments here and there that make no sense. You can tell a warrior woman you fight in the provings that there is no honor in fighting a woman, and I just don't understand how someone could add that line to the game when in character creation you can absolutely make a female dwarf noble and she is made commander of an army and no one seems to have an issue with that, with her being allowed to fight. It's a very weird oversight that makes me cringe whenever I play through the origin, but otherwise the dwarf noble origin is as close to a perfect start to the game as can be, in my opinion. I'd love to know your personal rankings of the origin stories. Which one is your favorite, and which one is your least favorite, and why? Let me know in the comments. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about my favorite origin story, as well as some thoughts on the others from Dragon Age Origins. If you're interested in more of my Dragon Age and RPG videos, do remember to subscribe, and leave a like and comment while you're at it too. They really help. This has been B Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.